Yo, welcome in. Much love, all gamers, Magic the Gathering players. Travis here, bringing you deck tech and one match review of standard Simic solution, what I'm calling this thing. So, MTG of the day, number 11. Magic learning magic backwards and forwards. So, the concept of this deck is all about tempo, speed, winning while the opponent has a full grip of cards in their hand, and it really comes from the Tempo Temersky decks I've been playing, what I've been calling Standard Delver, um, based around Honored Hierarch, tempo spells. However, when you play green, blue, red, and white, you lose a lot of consistency, and in Standard we have to wait for lands to come into play tapped or untapped. But if we play just blue-green, we can curve out. We've got fewer tapped lands. We have better mana. Other decks are going to be slow and stumbling on their cards, on their lands, taking damage from their lands, and we can just win pretty fast. So that's the basic concept. Before we go through some of the cards, another important concept of this deck is not just tempo and good mana and consistency, but flexibility. So we have tempo, speed, we have consistency in mana, and we have flexibility in different things we can do for different costs. This is very important. So if you don't like mana screw or you don't like mana flood, the easiest way to prevent it is to play cards that are good if you have 1 mana or good if you have 5 mana, and this deck is full of those. For instance, Lumbering Falls is a land that makes mana, or it can be a 3/3. Are you mana screwed? Good, you have land. Are you mana flooded? Good, you have a creature. Same with Rush of Ice and Clutch of Currents. Can ice, freeze, bounce the opponent's creatures, and awaken our own 3/3 land to attack. Ice Feather Aven, solid 2/2 flyer. Decent play. Sweet art, by the way. Or for Morph, if we have a lot of mana, we can bounce their creature. We have Skyrider Elf, which for blue-green is a 2/2 as well. Or we have some white mana. We don't have any white spells, but we've got a few white lands, which I'll explain. And we have Rattleclaw Mystic, which makes red. So we can either play a 2/2 for 2, a 3/3 for 3, or a 4/4 for 4. And then Dig Through Time, Treasure Cruise, and Become Immense similarly are fairly flexible on their mana cost. So what we have is a deck that is fast on tempo, it is consistent, and it is flexible. And those are things that's just is just a strong strategy, a premise to with the very start. So let's get into a little more in depth now. First of all, I would play 4 Flooded Strand, but I just don't own them, and I'm not going to put in more money right now. That's just a budget decision on my case. Otherwise, I would play 4. But you notice the Windswept Heath normally gets green-white, but it can fetch a blue-white land. Or the blue-white normally gets blue-white, but it can fetch a green-white land. What it means is Yavimaya Coast is a dual land, green-blue. Windswept Heath is a dual land, green-blue. Flooded Strand is a dual land. So we have really good mana. And that gives us a much better chance of, we have 8, 12 ways to play Honored Hierarch turn 1, and with so many tapped lands, this thing has a good chance of connecting immediately. Even if they have a blocker, maybe we can freeze it, maybe we can bounce it, or we're rocking 4 Stratus Walk, so we can give Honored Hierarch flying, or give their creature flying and inability to block, and this really feels like Delver of Secrets, or crazier even. Excuse me. So we have Rattleclaw, few tricks. I'm only rocking 1 counterspell in the main, but you could play more. Another card haven't mentioned yet is Bounding Krasis. Bounding Krasis, 3/3 for 3 is okay in Standard. I mean, you can go crazier for sure, but the flash, the surprise, tap their creature, force through more damage, works great. And then we have card draw to refill. I personally like Dig because it lets us search for whatever the last thing we need is to win with this deck, and Become Immense. So that's basically the main deck. The sideboard I'm still working on. We've got counters, we've got draw, and we've got a few different kinds of removal. Plummet, Naturalize, Dromoka's Command, Negate, Disdainful Stroke, Disperse, Exert Influence, more Draw, and the sideboard is not as tuned as the main. The main is pretty nice right now. So that's the deck, and before we get out of here, let's walk you through one very interesting match. So let's get to that. Alright, so we're doing a live match replay for our match of the day, number 11. And this is the first match I've played with the deck. So we'll go ahead and walk through it. Really awesome start. Turn 1 Hierarch. Opponent plays a Shambling Vent. We have our Hierarch out, and the opponent has another tapped land. So this is what the format is all about. It's very slow, lots of 4-color decks that have lots of tapped lands. So if you can force through, yes, it's just if you can have good mana and be fast and consistent and resilient, there's so much to gain. So here, now the opponent has Anafenza, and we have a few options. We could... My thinking on this turn is, why don't we Stratus Walk this Hierarch, connect, play a land, keep Negate mana up. That way next turn we will have 6 mana to Ice Feather Aven to bounce the Anafenza, instead of playing Ice Feather Aven now. So that's what I did, although we drew Rush of Ice, and I considered playing Rush of Ice on the Anafenza, but wanted to keep up Negate, which ends up turning out really well as we get to Negate Gideon. And we'll go what's going on right now. We'll get the opponent's mana, their lands, their rares, we're just winning with commons and dollar rares right now. Oops, I skipped through our turn. But it was what I discussed in the previous turn of morphing Ice Feather Aven, and so that we could bounce Anafenza, and we got in for 4 at that point as well. Worth noting that we're starting to get way ahead on tempo. The Honored Hierarchs have produced lots of mana, and we have plenty of things to do with that mana. So Ice Feather Aven, and the opponent fights with Dromoka's Command, makes us sacrifice Stratus Walk. So worth noting that we could have avoided that if I had bounced it while the opponent was tapped out, but I don't really mind so much. Yeah, I just don't mind that much. So a few options here. We could Treasure Cruise. We could Stratus Walk. What's it going to be? Or we could attack with the Lumbering Falls. Let's see what the decision is. And I decided, let's go ahead and punch the opponent for 7, put them to only 4 life, right? Puts the opponent very low, and they just concede. And our hand still full of gas. So that's tempo for you. And the opponent has 5 cards in hand, probably with a value of $1,000. Take it to game 2. So game 2, here's a hand that's like I wouldn't mulligan this. It's pretty ugly though. It doesn't have Hierarch or Rattleclaw Mystic on the draw. It can be a bit slow, and the opponent has a Warden. I don't really want to trade a whole card just for 1 mana right now to bounce that thing, so I'll just let the opponent attack with it. Drew a Rattleclaw Mystic, which is good, because we're short on lands and we're on the draws, but the opponent has Silk Wrap to destroy our creature, so we're on the receiving end of tempo. Now we can decide whether we want to bounce the Warden, which would just get replayed, or if we want to play Ice Feather Aven. I figure we want to play Ice Feather Aven, make the opponent spend some more mana, and then we can deal with it. Okay, so at this point we've drawn a 3rd land, so we can play Bounding Crisis to tap that and start to get some stuff going, and then maybe bounce it later. Although here I made a misclick and allowed the opponent to attack. It's not a game. It's definitely a mistake, not a game-losing mistake. So whatever. And here comes the Bounding Crisis now. Common mistake to make. It's not a strategic mistake, but you know, whatever. So at this point, we can clutch the Warden, but I figure if we're gonna win this game, we need to just top deck an island off Stratus Walk so that we can get ahead, because we're stuck on lands. Just bouncing the Warden is not going to be nearly enough. So I went for the Stratus Walk, and the opponent went for Abzan Charm in response. I just scooped it up at this point. 7-23, we're a tempo deck. That game just went horribly, so GG. Let's take it to game 3. Now back for game 3. Standard Simic solution, and this draw on the play is fine. It doesn't have Honored Hierarch, it doesn't have Rattleclaw Mystic, but we have threats and we have draw, we've got things to do. So the opponent leads with a tapped land, and at this point I decided to go with an Ice Feather Aven. A reason being, we can play it as a 2/2, and then we can play Skyrider Elf as a 3/3, and then Bounding Crisis to tap, and then put Stratus Walk on that. We have a pretty impressive flying army at this point. So stick with the plan. After we draw another land, opponent down to 18. They use an Abzan Charm here to exile our Skyrider Elf, which is whatever. Draw an Honored Hierarch is great, can get it into play, hit the opponent for 2. And out comes Siege Rhino number 1, which we can tap with Bounding Crisis. I have to take a pain to do it. Don't necessarily want to be bouncing those things too much. So yeah, a few options. Basically our options are Stratus Walk or Clutch. I don't want to Clutch for semi-obvious reasons, so I just went for the Stratus Walk and connected. And we have 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. Could have clutched, maybe to fuel Dig Through Time. We're slightly short on Dig on this turn, but we should be able to do it. There's Anafenza and Dramoka's command. Again, look at this. Flooded Strand, Wooded Foothills, rare, 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 mythic, rare. And we have uncommon, common, uncommon, dollar rare, common. Like, this is legit. It's, I didn't mention in the deck tech the joys, the budget joys of yeah, just basically the budget joys. So here we go. Windswept Heath, crack a land, and we can use Clutch with Awaken. Here's where consistency comes in. We can really push the pressure, bounce your creature, attack you for 7, down to 3. Now here's the crucial turn. Opponent has Siege Rhino number 2, and the life totals are tied 6-6. We have a 2/2 flyer, and we have a 3/3 and a 2/2. So here we are. We have a Clutch of Currents. Very interesting. Say we Clutch with Awaken, tap Honored Hierarch, bounce 1. This would be tapped. We would have 2 3/3s and a 2/2. The opponent could block a 3/3, take 5, go to 1, and then we're gonna die on the crackback. So instead, we need to tap a blue. Bounce your Siege Rhino, go for Dig Through Time, looking for our answer, and we've got many in the deck at this point. It's more likely than not that we succeed. So let's delve. Here we go. Delving. Delving. And we found Clutch of Currents and the land to play it. So that pretty much does it. Siege Rhino number 2 is going to get bounced, and we're going to attack in for 7, put the opponent to -1. So that's match 1. I'll be back tomorrow or the next day with a live playthrough. As you can see, one match is enough to say, alright, this is competitive, I'm paying attention. It is hanging with very expensive cards. So again, this could be a good budget solution for the time being in Standard, but also very fun. It's consistent, it's flexible, it's tempo-tastic. So that's the deck. If you made it this far and you enjoy, make sure to check out Magic Learning Rewards up here. Have some sweet stuff for you if you support what we're doing. I'm also working on an exclusive video vault that's not going to be for everyone on this channel, but only for supporters, so that's something that you should keep in mind. And if you haven't checked out the Magic Learning program yet, do that. And everyone else, thanks for watching. Hope you found this useful, and I will see you back here tomorrow.